If somebody knocks on your van in the middle of the night, just know this is not a social visit. Hey everybody, it's Missy with Jake and Me Van Life, and I'm sure glad to be here to talk to you guys. Some time ago, probably about almost a year ago, I had mentioned in one of my videos about the 7 knocks on the door that I had gotten thus far at that time, which it's still 7 knocks, I'm proud to say, after 2 years and 3 months. That's a lot more than I'd like to have. And fortunately, I've picked up and learned how to do this right. So you could check my video on stealth parking if you want to. But somebody in one of my videos, actually a couple people, had mentioned, because I had mentioned about my 7 knocks on the door, a couple people had remarked, "Ooh, I can't wait till I hear about that on a video or see that on the video." So I decided, you know what, here I am 2.5 weeks, maybe 3 weeks from leaving for my road trip out to Arizona. And I'm kind of running out of content. And all of a sudden that popped in my head. I said, that's what I'm supposed to do today. So here we have it, the 7 knocks on my door. And I will tell you, out of all 7, 5 of them were terrifying, and 2 of them were very, very kind and polite officers, police officers. I've got my little notepad because I always keep track of this kind of stuff, and I'm not going to remember if I just sit here and go through 7. Let's get started. All right, my first frightening experience with the knock on the door, well, let's see. Oh yes, I was back home after a trip. I had done my first trip. I was back home. I was doing stealth camping or street parking, and I was new at this. So granted, my first trip was out to Arizona to RTR. And when I got back, I went in and I parked in a new place I hadn't parked, and I decided to try it out. It was near where I usually park for the past year. But something told me, obviously to teach me, something told me to park over in this shopping center, which is across the street from downtown Westminster, and I could stay the night there because there's not that many businesses in there. Well, at 2:30 in the morning, mind you, I get a pound, pound, pound. And it wasn't 3 knocks, it was 5 knocks the first time. Nobody identified themselves, and it was terrifying to me. And then it comes again, bam, 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 bam. And I jumped, and my cat Jake jumped, and we both just sat there, froze. I mean, we froze. And then a third time, bam, 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 you better open up, whoever's in there. This is Westminster Police Department. You are not allowed to be here. Okay, that was a police officer being horribly frightening and mean. So I opened up my window or my door, and he was just as hateful. He said, "You need to leave. You're not allowed to park here." I said, "But there's no signs, so I didn't know I couldn't park here." He said, "We don't have to have signs. It's a city ordinance, and if you're going to do this, you should know." He was really hateful, abrupt. It was as if he thought I was trash, or at least he treated me like I was trash. It was horrible. So I told him, I said, "Okay, no problem." But I said, "I have a lot of stuff on the counter I'm going to have to put down on the floor and use some bungee cords to lock it down." And he looked at me and he did it just like this. "You have 15 minutes to get out of here. I'm going to park right behind you," or actually it was in front of me, "with my headlights on, and I will be there timing you. And the time starts now." Yep, that's what he said to me. I was scared to death. He had threatened me with a ticket if I wasn't out of here within 15 minutes, and I was terrified. So I'm just throwing things on the floor. I got out of there and never looked back. I went back the next day, and there was no signs in there saying about a city ordinance or anything like that. So I left there, and I'm going to tell you what, that was my worst knock at the door yet. Let's go to the next one. Number 2. Now this one was in Broomfield, which is one of the neighboring towns, and it was a sports complex park where they had ball fields and a football field and soccer fields and bathrooms and everything. I had not consistently, but off and on for 2 weeks. And of course, those of you that watch my videos, you know, I don't stay there all day and all. I go to the parks. I'll sit at the parks and let Jake go outside is what I always did. And then I would go back to park, stealth parking for the night. Well, this time I went back to the sports complex like I always have. And there was 1 or 2 other people that were parking there at night also that were vans. And at 3:15 a.m., I get bam, 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 open up. And it was loud and mean. Also, I call it my second most terrifying knock at the door. So he didn't announce who he was or anything. He just said, open up. And I just sat frozen with Jake like I always did, like I did the time before, until he said, this is Broomfield PD. You better open up and respond to me. He was hateful and nasty. And again, treated me like I was trash, like a piece of trash. I was so disgusted. Opened the door and he says, you can't park here overnight. I said, and I was half asleep. It was 3:15 in the morning. I don't know why they do that, but they seem to love waking you up in the middle of the night when you're in a dead sleep and then you jump out because it terrifies you. But I explained to him, I said, well, there's no signs here. He said, we put up signs this afternoon around 7, well, actually evening around 7 p.m. Well, I'd already been parked there. I didn't know they had put signs up. So he gave me a very short amount of time, 5 minutes, to get the heck out of there or he would issue me a ticket. Now, that's 2 local cops that I've lived here 23 years and most of the rest of my life in Florida, but been here in Colorado 23 years and I have never been treated so horribly by police officers like I was in Broomfield and Westminster. All right, here comes knock number 3. Are you scared yet? If you haven't had a knock at the door, trust me, it will come. Everybody gets a knock at the door sooner or later. Most people don't get 7 like I've had, but I got 7 even obeying the rules like no signs for overnight parking and stuff, all of that. All right, here's number 3. This was also Westminster. However, I parked in public parking on the street in the not in the apartment complex, but see, Westminster built a whole big downtown and it has businesses, but it also has 3 major apartment complexes also in that area. And I lived in one of those apartments for 3 years. Then I bought my van and got out of my lease and I started camping overnight in my van, and that's how that came about. But it was the same place that I had parked my van already for a year there by where my apartment was. I know people out there. Cops were always out there. No one ever came up to me or approached me until one day a year later. Jake was outside on his leash, which he'd done for a year, and it was just in the morning, let him go out so he was happy before we start running errands. And I brought him in, and as soon as I did, a police officer comes walking up to my van by my sliding door, and he goes, hello there. And I said, hi. He goes, do you know you can't park overnight here? And I said, really? There's no signs? I've been parking here overnight off and on for a year. He said, well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you can't no longer. He said, I just got this beat and was distinctly given instructions, no parking overnight. So that's why I stopped here to tell you. I said, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do, where I'm going to park, because I'm new at this. I just started doing van life, living in my van because I can't afford the apartments here. He said, well, you can go out down this road and that, and you can park out there. He says, it's Stanley Lake. So I went out there and it's a campground and it's $35 to $50 a night depending upon what you're doing. That didn't work out. So then I drove up to Cracker Barrel in Broomfield. Oh, they've got signs up everywhere now. They don't let people park there. I went to the Walmart in Westminster that was by me and they have signs up. I went to Walmart in Broomfield. They had signs up. And to be honest with you, I can't even tell you where I ended up parking because I can't remember and it's not in my notes. So anyhow, this police officer was very nice. He was very apologetic. I thanked him for telling me in the morning and not waiting until 2:33 in the morning to tell me. He says, oh no, I'd never do that. So I left. Well, that night I decided to go back. Now this was my own stupidity, so I admit it. But I didn't go back to where I was parking before. I went to way on the other side in a totally different area that I was parked behind some other vans that were business vans. And I thought, oh, well, this will be fine just for tonight. And lo and behold, in the morning at 7:45, I go climb into my driver's seat, and who pulls right up next to my driver's seat but that same police officer? Oh my gosh, I was so embarrassed. He unrolls his window, electric window, and he leans over and he says, I thought we talked about this. That's how nice he was. And he starts laughing, and I just burst into tears. I told him that, I'm new at this, like I told you yesterday, and I thought maybe if I parked in a different area, it would be okay. He said, no, I'm sorry. you can't do that anymore. And I'm crying, and I said that I was leaving in 2 weeks for a road trip. So I'm trying to figure out what to do. And I told him, he says, well, I told you about that place yesterday. And I said, I went there, and it's a campground that charges $35 to $50 a night. And I don't have that kind of money to pay to camp until I leave for 2 weeks. He kind of looked down and he looked up and he says, I'll tell you what, this is my beach. You can stay here for 2 weeks till you leave for your road trip. But please park in different areas every night. Don't park in the same one. And I will overlook you for 2 weeks. I thanked him and thanked him and thanked him. That was like a Christmas present or birthday present to me. And I'll never forget that police officer, because he was the first police officer who was kind to me. It was just really, really amazing. And that was a Westminster police officer. He wasn't anything like the other one that I had that was so brutal and gave me 15 minutes parking in front of me, and he'd issue me a ticket, just threat, threat, threat. Okay, so here, let's go to the next one. Number 4, knock on the door, number 4. Oh, you guys, this is going to hit some raw nerves with people when I tell you this. Now, the problem is I can't remember what state I was in. I was thinking it was Wyoming or Idaho, and I think it's one of those. But I had been driving, I was exhausted, and I Googled and found that there was a Love's 30 miles on up the road on my way. So I drove it, I pulled in that Love's. It was a smaller one than most of them I recognized. And they didn't have the campground across the street. Of course, a lot of the Love's don't yet. They're just starting that. But it was a Love's. I pulled in and parked, and by this time, well, it was 4:30, so I was dead asleep. Jake was asleep. Within an hour, we had dinner, and then I had turned on my laptop and my AirPods to just watch some TV till I fell asleep, and I fell asleep really early. At 9:30, 5 hours since I fell asleep, or since I got there and parked, I get boom, 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 boom. I jumped and I thought, oh God, what is that? Because I know you can park at Love's overnight. And I hear it again, boom, 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 boom. I know you're in there. You better open this door. And I kind of looked out the window, and it was a woman. And I could tell by the voice it was a woman. I thought, maybe she needs help. So I opened it up, and she goes, you've been parked here 5 hours. It's time to go. I said to her, but this is Love's. I said, I always stay when I'm on the road traveling, I'm exhausted. I stop at a Love's and I park there for the night like everybody else does. Well, you don't do it here, she told me. We don't have enough space to let people do that. Oh, so she told me, you need to leave and go on about your way or find another place to park. So I left. I gave that Love's a really bad review. Couldn't give the cops a bad review, but that Love's I did, and I'll never go there for anything, gas, food, anything in the future, if I can remember where it was. Okay, so that was number 4, the Love's knock. I never forgot that one. Number 5, this was in a totally different place. This one was in Thornton, which is another neighboring town. So we're kind of like just outside of Denver in the suburbs, and there's Broomfield, Westminster, and Thornton north of Denver. And that's where, when I was married and all, I lived in Thornton. So I know this area very well. Well, there was an apartment complex someone had told me about. Go park there, because I've done it before and no one ever bothered me. I must have Queen Knock on my van or something, because I went there and parked, and it was dark. I waited till dark in the wintertime. And let's see, what time did they wake me up? Oh, I didn't put it on here. Parked there, and I was dead asleep in the night. Don't know what time it was. And I get that boom, 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 boom. Really hard. Actually, they're all hard. I peeked out, and I saw it was a police officer, and I go, can I help you? He said, well, I have to help you. We got a call. You cannot be parking here. The apartment manager called and said you were here and to please remove you. Okay, I guess the trash I am needs to be tossed out in the garbage, huh? So I didn't even argue with him. I said, I'm sorry. I did not know. Someone had recommended me to park here just for the night to sleep. He said, you know what? I would let you park there for the night to sleep, but, they made a call. So I have to go and handle it and ask you to leave. I said, I understand. understand, and I left there. That was knock number 5. Now, when I did answer it, he was pounding hard, and maybe his experience has been to do that because he has to wake people up. But he was very nice. He was not very nice. He was just matter of fact, not unpleasant, but not pleasant, you know. So I just didn't want to argue or say, well, where's the sign? Nothing. I just got out of there. I just put my stuff down on the floor and got out of there. Now, mind you, these 7 knocks at my door are over the past 2 years. Okay. So it's not all at once. I will tell you the majority were in my first year. The last, I think it's been about 10 months, almost a year since I've had a knock at the door. And I claim that to be with experience, I guess, because the rest of them were all I was very new. Okay, let's go to knock number 6. Oh, this was in Fort Bragg, California. Last summer, I went and spent 2 months in Northern California in the sequoia and redwoods, which I loved. I want to go back. And then I went to Mendocino, which is a beautiful little touristy town, and they let people camp there overnight in their vans or cars or what have you. They're just very welcoming, as is Fort Bragg. And a friend had told me about Fort Bragg, and she said, nobody's going to bother you. They don't. They really, it's just people who are, you know, traveling and campers and vacation people because it helps their economy. Okay, so I went there and I found a great place. You could actually see the Pacific Ocean, and I sat there and then I fell asleep. Jake and I went to sleep while watching TV. Yeah, that's what it was. I had to think about that one a minute. It was about 8, somewhere between 8 and 8:30. And there was a kind of a slight knock at the door, a 3 knock, and it wasn't absurd like the others. All the others were. It was just kind of like a tap, tap, tap. Well, that kind of surprised me. So I sat still because I don't know this city or anybody, and they didn't identify themselves. If there's police officers watching and you're going to make somebody leave their spot, before you knock on the door or while you're knocking, announce that you're a police officer, because otherwise we're terrified. We don't know if someone wants to break in and they're checking to see if somebody's inside. We don't have any idea. So that would help greatly. It would take away a lot of stress and being terrified until you do identify yourself. The second time knocking, he did identify. He says, I am with Fort Bragg Police Department. Can you come to speak to me for a moment? Very nice. So I went and he explained to me you couldn't park there. And I said, oh, okay. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't see any signs. He goes, well, there is one, but it's kind of hidden by a bush, which explained it. He laughed and I laughed. I said, can you recommend where in Fort Bragg I can park? I'm going to be here for a good while. I can't afford, to pay for park. He said, go over to Safeway. They let people park on the street, not in the parking lot, but on the street. And they have 3 long streets surrounding them. And he says, and they always let people park there overnight. I said, great. Thank you so much. He was the nicest cop besides the one in Westminster that I had that let me stay 2 weeks. He was the second nice cop, the only other nice cop. But I thanked him so much, and I got out of there and went over to Safeway, and I had a pretty peaceful night's sleep. Okay, we are now at number 7. Now this one was really scary. I don't recall. Did I put where I was at? Oh, I was in the Colorado mountains. I didn't put the town though. Sometimes you don't know what town it is, because especially if it's a desolate area. I had been driving, I was exhausted, and started looking for a place to park for the night. I came across this desolate road. It was a dirt road, dirt/gravel road, like a lot of the BLM roads are that we go and camp on, right? So I turned and went down there, and it came to a dead end, and there was no homes, nothing out there, not even street lights, nothing. So I thought, oh, I can park here. Don't ever say that, because you don't know. And there was no signs either for no overnight parking. So Jake and I went, parked the van, and put our window covers up as always. And this one was at 3 a.m. in the morning. Boom, boom, boom. We jumped because, you're in a dead sleep, and we sat frozen because I'm on this desolate road, and the only thing I can think of is someone's trying to break into my van. I'm about ready to jump in the front seat. They do it again. Boom, boom, boom. Police, you need to come to the door. I stopped going to the front like I was doing and answered the door, and he said, ma'am, you cannot park out here. It's dangerous out here. I said, oh, I didn't know. I said it was a desolate road, a dead end. I'm just trying to get some sleep for the night before I take off tomorrow. I didn't have any idea. He says, yes, you need to get out of here. It's very dangerous. He said, we've had some serious crimes occur out here, and that's all I'll say to that, he said. I have to admit, when he was saying it, it wasn't like he was really nice, because he wasn't at all. He was like almost bullying me or trying to make me scared. And it worked, because I wanted to get out of there. So what did Missy do? Missy left. At least that cop left and trusted me to leave. I figured he's going to check again, so I had to get out of there. I didn't want to stay anywhere that it wasn't safe, right? So I got out of there. Well, that's my 7 knocks at the door. And like I told you, most of them were my first year when I was learning everything. And it's been a long time since I've had one, so I'm feeling good about it. I'd love to hear about your knock at the door if you've had one. Or if you haven't had one, I'd love to see how many people haven't had one, because inevitably everybody's going to get a knock at the door. If you're new, it's more likely, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen later on. So my advice is, if you get the knock at the door, until somebody identifies himself as a police officer, or it's like a woman's voice and you're parked at a Love's, I wouldn't answer the door until you know that it's safe to answer the door. And that one in Westminster, I sat there while he pounded 3 different times, like, oh, and I didn't tell you, he used his beat, the baton thing, and is hitting my van with that. Yes. And you better believe I checked to see if there was damage, and there wasn't. But I would love to have turned him in. My point is, don't open that door. Don't even answer it when someone's knocking until they identify themselves as a police officer, but don't open it. I will tell you, I've had 2 years and 3 months of safe traveling and safe camping, and I love this lifestyle. So don't think that I'm disgruntled with van life because of these 7 knocks. I'm not. I look at it as a learning lesson. I had to learn the hard way, obviously. I was too trusting for whatever reason. But I've woke up, folks. I hope you've enjoyed this video. And as you can see, I'm doing better since Jake's passing. I still have a hard time, but I do want to show you something. Now, this will probably get me choked up a little bit. Let me show you. Do you see what's up there? That's Jake's ashes in there. This is to put a picture in. It's just instructions, so I have to get a picture printed up of Jake to put on there. And it not only came with that, which I chose that one because of the picture on the front, but it also came with a footprint of Jake. That one I broke down crying when I opened it up. I wasn't expecting it. It was a nice pretty box and everything, and I just bawled really good with that one. But I am doing better, and again, thank you all for caring about me and asking and sending your regards and condolences. I'm so grateful for all of you. Which means, have you hit that like button? Because those like buttons are helping me with the algorithm so that I can get to a point of earning money. But I know what I was doing. So I was asking about liking it. It really does help me when you hit the like. But the biggest one that helps me the most is subscribing. And why not subscribe? You can always unsubscribe if you don't like it. Give me a try, check out my videos, and I hope you will subscribe if you haven't already. And to all of my subscribers, thank you so much. You guys know you're my channel family. I thank you all, and I will see you at the next video. You guys have a great day. The holidays are coming up, so I hope that your holidays are wonderful. Take care, everybody. Don't forget to comment. Tell me if you've ever gotten a knock at a door, how many, or if you haven't. Thanks, guys.